got Rotus here. Rotus.
Yeah, good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Well said on the budget. We'll get to that in a moment. But we had an exclusive interview yesterday on the Global Business Report with the Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC, and one of the things I asked him was on it was on subsidies, yeah, and the market cap, or the price cap, excuse me, on downstream products. So you know, of course, that PMS is, there's a cap on PMS. So if you look at the revenue breakdown, again, we're talking about their financials, their performance, outlook for the NNPCL, and so on and so forth. So, you know, 6 trillion, over 6 trillion is what they brought in revenue. You break it down, crude oil sales was about 1.8 trillion, 123% climb. Petroleum product sales, that's where I asked him his question. 3.6 trillion in revenue, 60% year on year. You got natural gas, you got services. But looking at petroleum product sales, that includes sales of PMS, sales of kerosene, and then, you know, diesel. And what I asked him was, hey, you know, you are in the downstream sector and you're also a player. I mean, you know, they took over assets or downstream assets of OVH Energy. They've been rebranding, they're expanding their footprints, celebrated great stuff. But I asked him, I said, hey, if you deregulate the downstream sector and you are allowed to sell PMS at a market-determined price, wouldn't you make more revenue? You know, a roundabout way of, you know, asking about fuel subsidies. So here's what he said on that.
The fact that if the market is deregulated, then we are free to sell on the basis of the prevailing market prices. Of course, watching competition. And as the energy provider for the nation, we cannot be seen to also be over-profiteering. But that said, it is quite correct to say that we will be making much more revenue and profit if we were to be operating in a deregulated market.
All right, then next off, we asked him, I mean, I'm going to talk about Geregu Power in a second, but the IPO, everyone's been asking, you know, talking about when the NNPCL will list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It's going to happen next year. It's going to happen 2024, 2025. Here's what he said about that with respect to the initial public offering for the company.
IPO, we have, yes, said that by next year we should be IPO ready. IPO ready does not necessarily mean going into the stock market same year. There is a process for you to be able to go into the market and also access capital and attract oversubscription. That's really our goal and driver. And so all our business processes, we're working on them to ensure that they are efficient enough that any due diligence that is done, whether it is legal, financial, or operational, that the company will meet the test of the investors, and as such, the offer when made, whether it is local or offshore, will in reality attract interest and oversubscription. And that remains our goal.
IPO ready next year, not necessarily listing extra, so perhaps 2024, 2025. And then finally, the refineries, you know, as you know, there hasn't been any output from them. I asked him what his response to people who say that the staff there should be completely cleared out and they shouldn't still be paying salaries to staff at a refinery that is not putting any output. Here's his response.
The right time for anybody to advocate sacking of staff at this time that the whole world, not only Nigeria, is challenged. To that extent, those who say that probably are also not engineers. You don't send out everybody in the refinery until you rehabilitate. In fact, you could as well say even the security should be taken away. By the time you come back, then probably you will not meet a spanner in the plant. So it is absolutely necessary that you have to keep minimum level of workforce, that asset's integrity is maintained. That when you come back to operate it, you are in a position to operate it efficiently.
All right, we move to Geregu. We did break it here that Geregu Power would, of course, be listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange on the NGX. They made their debut yesterday. Market cap went to about 275. It had a 10% gain, closed at about 110 naira per share. Historic got the first, power company on the NGX, on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Vetiva Capital, they put out a note. Their target price is 131. So I haven't bought any shares yet. You have to read the fundamentals. You got to talk to financial advisors and stuff like that. But look, we talked about this earlier in the week in terms of what it means for the liquidity for the value chain for firms to be able to raise money. They had a successful bond offering earlier in the year, around June. I think it was 40 billion naira or so that they raised, part of a 100 billion program. So Geregu is in the capital markets. They've been looking to raise funds there. Hopefully this means we get more companies on the exchange. We only had 2. I mean, by the way, this was a listing by introduction, wasn't initial public offering with new shares. Essentially, it's existing shareholders that sell what they have. So we only had 2 this year, in addition to Boa, Foods. We need more on the exchange, and so good stuff there, at least for our capital markets. Finally, Rufai, you already touched on this. You and Doctor touched on this. President Buhari presenting the budgets, his final budgets of his tenure, to the National Assembly tomorrow. Of course, the topics, as you both have already touched on, is the deficits, how it's going to be funded, the borrowing, and so on and so forth. And there you have it. There you have it.
Where shall I begin from? Well, I heard a lot of the arguments made as regards the NNPC. The CFO of the NNPC was speaking. And yes, they're making some traction with this new NNPC PLC thing.
NNPC Limited,
Limited. But some things look very nebulous to me. So take, for instance, I would have thought you asked him, what was the cost implication of that OVH deal?
Okay. Well, I mean, look, it's a deal that allows them to essentially just take over the retail outlets for that those have, and it's about 385.
And so nothing was involved?
No, it's nothing of it. It's a deal now. Essentially, it's a purchase of their assets.
How much was it?
Why are we concerned about how much it was? I mean, it's deals now.
But I mean, there should be transparency. Now, this is a company that wants to go to the market.
Yeah.
Market ready in 1.5 years down the line, or 2 years down the line.
Yeah.
And he made a major purchase, and we don't know how much he did it.
Well, I mean, look, the thing is,
release the number. Now.
Okay, fine.
I think it's only fair for them to release the number.
As far as how much they paid.
Secondly, I mean.
Okay.
I'm excited that more companies are listing. Geregu and all. Geregu is listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. But the concern Dr. Abati raised is always about even the viability of these companies. We can go a whole long line. I remember how companies list with funfair.
Yeah.
I bought Owando shares though.
Well, look. I mean, Geregu is again. Owando is oil and gas upstream. Geregu is the power.
Yes.
And they put out the prospectus.
And tell you how much of my money all these billionaires, the listed companies in stock exchange, that my 10 kobo is still with in share money.
It was
I shouldn't be opening that Pandora's box.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
But what I'm just saying is that please, companies should be run properly. Yeah, and I pray that Nigerians truly get the value of what they put into it.
Right. Okay. Well said. Well said.
NNPC.
Yes.
NNPC is a company in transition. It has moved from being essentially a public corporation into a limited liability company.
Yeah.
And all of this came into effect as a result of the Petroleum Industry Act.
Yes.
So the chief financial officer that you spoke with, I think he struck all the right notes, about how this is going to be a more profitable company in a deregulated market. The group managing director, Meli Kyari, already made that very clear too, when he said that, look, this is a new company, a new business, a new dispensation. They even changed the logo of the NNPC to establish that and to say that this is a limited liability company that is going to serve the interests of shareholders. And that even if there is any connection with Nigerian government, the Nigerian government will pay for everything, when it transacts business with the company. So it's a new dispensation. We've seen, profit being declared. We've seen information being given. So transition from being an opaque institution to a new institution where the emphasis is on transparency, customer satisfaction, shareholder, satisfaction. Now, but he made a point about IPO. He said the IPO doesn't mean selling shares.
No, he said,
is that how
IPO,
he put it?
No, he said they'll be IPO ready next year. So it doesn't mean that they'll list next year, that they'll be ready and then maybe 2024, okay. 2025.
I just wanted to establish that I had him correctly. Because many Nigerians are saying that even now that the NNPC is in transition, that's still essentially a government-owned, federal government-owned business. Because of the involvement of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, if you look at the shareholding, even if you look at the structure of the board. So persons are saying that, look, if you put NNPC on the market and it is owned by ordinary Nigerians, then we know that it's really truly a new operation. So that's one question that is hanging in there. The third issue is that this transition is coming also at a point of transition for Nigeria. One of the major achievements of the Buhari administration has been in ensuring, that at least the Petroleum Industry Act got passed, which is one of the pieces of legislation longest in making in Nigeria for more than 20 years. But it is possible that a new president will emerge, a new administration will emerge next year that will say, look, there are unresolved issues in the enabling law. After all, questions have been raised about community rights. Questions have been raised about, amount of percentages that go to the oil-bearing communities. Questions have also been raised about other issues, okay? So I don't think it's a finished business yet. But as a company that is evolving, it is important to see that the NNPC is moving from the past, to the future. That, I think, is a big takeaway in that regard. Okay, as for the budget, yes, we commented at length on that budget. And I would like to see what fundamentals were eventually agreed upon. Because when the Minister of Finance and Budget Planning went before the National Assembly, when they were looking at the medium term and fiscal framework for 2023 to 2025, the fundamentals that were proposed was $70 to the
$70 per barrel.
$70 per barrel. Okay, would that be realistic? What was also proposed was a foreign exchange rate of 437 naira to the dollar. Today, the dollar is almost 740. Some people are even giving apocalyptic prediction that if we are not careful, it will hit 1,000 naira. Okay, so. And then, of course, the other fundamental. The budget at the time it was proposed by the ministry was based on 1.69 million barrels per day. We can't even meet that quota. We're barely doing 1 million barrels. 1.2, and then you have a fiscal deficit, of over 12 trillion naira. You have subsidy of over 7 trillion. And the minister told us that there will be no money for capital expenditure. So I think Nigerians should just tighten their belts and prepare for a very difficult 2023. Now that the World Bank has reviewed our economic outlook down to 3.2, it could be worse.
It could be.
Okay?
It could be.
So, I really don't envy whoever is going to be president of Nigeria. I hope the person has the right brain and the right team to be able to get us out of where we have found ourselves. Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
And please, like Dr. Bati said, let's tighten our belt. So it's not the one that you say that now.
Pockets,
it's not the one that Dr. Bati said that now. Let's tighten our belts. Some people say God forbid. This one is not a case of God forbid. Man has made this happen. Let's solve our problem.